So let's start. Welcome everyone. Welcome to this edition of Innovation and Pandemic. And we are happy to have you all. With us are two distinguished guests for today's evening. We have Mr. V. Verma, and he is the founder of Coach Direct In. He has had a very illustrious career in the financial domain. He is he has passed out from Cambridge University, and he has been involved in a lot of things prior to this. He has done business analysis and strategic business decisions, and he has also done assessment over the years. And now, in his present life, he is involved in sports coaching, wellness training, business coaching, and the like. Hi, my audible? Hi guys. Hello,
Subhankit,
V.
your voice is breaking up.
Okay, seems like my connection is.
Yes. Okay. Uh, okay. Let me. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Now you're visible, Subhankit.
Okay. Let's have another go at it. Probably my internet is a little, my bandwidth is a little broken up, but I'll give it another go. So welcome you all to today's edition of Innovation in Pandemic. Thank you all for attending. And as I was telling, that we have two guests today. We have Mr. Veer Verma and we have Mr. Priyanjit Ghosh. I will talk a little about Mr. Veer Verma. He is the founder of CoachDirect.in. And prior to this, Mr. Veer Verma has been involved in the financial domain. He has worked with a couple of international banks, and in the current at present he is a sports coaching and wellness training, and he also provides business coaching and various services to entrepreneurs. So that is a huge shift from what he has done prior to this. And Mr. Priyanjit Ghosh is the co-founder of Vector Labs, and his vision is to democratize and provide affordable AI to the world. So I think we could start off with Mr. V first. How we'll conduct this session is we will have a one-to-one conversation. I will ask a couple of questions to our speakers, and the audience is also welcome to pitch in at any moment in time. So we can have a couple of questions with Mr. V first, a discussion, and then we can advance Mr. Vijay Ghosh. Is that all right, Mr. Veer?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this. Thank you so much for having me.
Great, great. Happy to have you today. So let's ask you what has changed in terms of your client expectations, because this pandemic has been huge disruption, and most of the work is involved with working with people outdoors, and with a lot of people coming in together. So my question is, how has the expectations of your clients changed throughout this period, and what are your new learnings, and how have you realized, if any, that relevance?
I could hear some background noise.
Okay, could you hear my question, Mr. Veer, or do you want me to repeat again?
No, I got the question, absolutely. I was just hearing some background noise, so just waiting for it to get over. Very valid point, Shubhankit. So our world has changed upside down, especially for people like us who are in sports and outdoors, because our business, just to give a background to people who are probably new to this. So what we do is we primarily work with a number of schools and a few gated communities. We do events, outdoor events like marathons, sometimes indoor events like yoga and all. But essentially, the core part of it is pretty practical oriented. It's pretty physical activity with a lot of people involved. So yeah, this COVID is really a big bolt on our head. It has completely changed our life. And the last time we did any sort of sports coaching was mid-March. And since then, absolutely zero. Nothing is happening in the sports world. And so that prompted us to think of newer products, newer alternatives, because we could see that it's not going to go away easily. Probably it's going to stay for the rest of this year. So a good 6 periods of this year, I think we will be left with no turnover, nothing, if we were going to go that route. So that was very, very obvious to us. So I am glad that we have learned this in a positive way, and what we have to offer right now is a coaching which is more relevant to emotional health and more relevant to overall wellness rather than just the physical part of it. Because earlier it used to be a lot of schools, a lot of gated communities where we used to go and teach kids all these sports and physical activities. Now we are shifting a little bit towards the more emotional health side of things. And we're trying to do more wellness programs, which are like stress management, which are like better diet, nutrition, mindfulness, and so on, which is a little bit more holistic in nature rather than just the body part of it. So we're just trying to say to ourselves that we're going to be in a place where there's a harmony between your mind, body, and soul. So we just completely rephrased our own vision statement, and yeah, we're glad that we are able to make that change, and now we can see some traction. We are trying to pitch ourselves in that direction.
So have you noticed your clients, be it small businesses or individuals who come for any sort of wellness coaching from you? Have you noticed that their demands have changed or their requirements have changed in the past couple of days?
Yeah, Subhankit. So we do see people approaching us for emotional health and mental health issues because this pandemic has really put a lot of stress on everyone's life. Whether you're a businessman, you don't have a turnover, or you're a professional, or you lost your job, or you've been asked to do so many more things than what you were doing earlier. There's a lot of pressure on everybody. Or for that matter, if you're just a housewife and you're locked in your room with your husband, that creates a lot of tension as well. So yeah, we are seeing these clients coming to us lately, which was never the case before, because it was all about physical exercise earlier. So yeah, I think the needs are changing, and so do we have to according to that.
And probably this pandemic has actually helped people realize how important work it is that you are doing and how relevant it is at this time, and also for the time coming ahead. So yeah. I think in a way, this is actually working for you. So my second question to you is, I was going through your profile, and you have an illustrious career in the finance domain. You have worked with Citigroup, you have worked with Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank. So my question to you is, what did you realize that was missing when you were working with these big companies, big finance companies? What was missing, and what was the gap that you felt you needed to fill?
Sure. So yeah, it's true. I worked with a lot of top-tier investment banks, and in fact, straight after my MBA in finance, I went and joined those investment banks. I did have some prior experience as well in software and in finance-related software before that as well. So it's been quite a number of years that I've spent in that industry. But I think it's really my calling, because after a few years, I realized that that's not really giving the satisfaction, and that's not really giving the motivation to go further ahead, because obviously the pay is very good. I wouldn't deny that. Probably it's initial years, probably it was much more than what we were making as a turnover for the whole company, I would say.
Right.
Can I ask others to please mute unless we have a
Yes,
Q&A?
Priyadarshi, can you please, mute the new entrants?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, you can continue, yes.
Sure. So yeah, as I said, for quite a number of initial years, probably the whole turnover of the business was less than what I was making earlier, because I worked in abroad and all. So that was conscious decision that I was going to take a hit on the money part of it, but rather do something which is close to my heart. And also it gives a satisfaction because we feel like we are contributing something back to the society. We are making a healthier nation. Because what we observed is when we started out with Coach Direct is the kids really lacked foundation in sports. There was obviously, we're not talking about the state level and national level players, because that's fine, they've been taken care of. But what about the grassroots? There's hardly any activity happening. There was no awareness of physical exercise, no awareness, not only physical exercise, taking sports as your backbone, because that can form your character, right? So those sort of things were completely missing, and we feel very satisfied.
Can I just interrupt you and
sure.
Yeah. Can I just interrupt you and ask you a question? So, with sports comes the dearth of equipments to play. Like when you're talking about grassroots level sports and engagement, we have this huge gap in our country where even though the willingness is more, but we realize that the funds for equipments or the required impetus to take the sports person to the next level, to get them serious about these sports is a big issue. So how are you as an organization, how are you addressing this this gap? How are you addressing it?
Yeah, sure. So primarily we have two sorts of customers. The one is the B2B. We go to a number of schools. So wherein obviously we're not talking about the government schools where it is still a issue what you have mentioned. But however, the private schools are quite aware because of the fact that because they are outsourcing this to professionals, and they do realize that unless you have the right sort of equipment, you are not going to get results basically.
Right.
So I think to some extent that's kind of addressed there. And the other sector is the B2C sector, where we are talking about gated communities, etc. And there, of course, they have the resources to get themselves basic equipment, so that's not an issue there. But you're right. You're right. It's still a valid issue, especially in because we are is in just the metro cities, right? We have not yet expanded to the tier 2 or tier 3 and so on. I'm very sure that it's really a big problem out there. But yeah, we are not yet there, so I can't give you my personal experience at this point.
So, now that a lot of recreational events have gone online. For example, this event that we are doing right now, this is also online, and in a normal circumstance, we may have conducted this, in a physical way. But now that we see a lot of recreational events are going online, and the social norms have changed, and the new normal being, people are not gathering in crowded places, and basically distancing is the new norm. So my question is, how are you looking to reinvent your operations in a testing time like this? Now that schools are shut down and everything is online. So how have you, reinvented your idea, and how are you going forward with it?
Yeah, we have to go with the times, unfortunately. So even though we don't enjoy teaching sports online, to be honest with you, I'm sure that's the experience with other coaches as well. But what do? We have to go with the times. So I'm getting some echo. Is it the same?
Priyadarshi, can we just can we mute the new entrance?
Subhankit, you are the host, I hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, thanks, guys.
Okay.
So to answer the question, some of the schools have started looking at online physical education. Having said that, it's probably only I would say less than 5%. Not many schools out there are actually started doing online physical education, because primarily for two reasons. Because we don't just do physical education, we rather do specialist sports. So we have specialist coaches who do like, for example, there's a badminton or a football coach who goes in depth into those topics, and that's not really the schools are keen at this point. So not much is happening there, but a lot of schools are thinking. They have not yet started. Only about 5% of schools have really started. Actually starting with physical fitness, things that could be done online, like for example, yoga could be done online, dance-based fitness could be done online, martial arts to some extent can be done online, and generally cardio and strengthening, those sort of things can be done online. So it's a tiny proportion, and we are changing with those times, just to keep the engagement going. It's not like we enjoy doing it, but we have to go with the times.
Right. So yeah, that's going well for you. Let's see. And now my next question is going to be something related to finance, because you also have a good domain knowledge of finance. So now that this is also a huge disruption for the domain of finance, and finance being one of the fulcrum points over which a lot of industries depend. So this has taken a hit in terms of providing capital to businesses, and when you see about M&A and these sort of workings of the finance domain, so they have taken a huge hit. So my question is, how do you see the world of finance changing in the next couple of months, or maybe in the next 1 year? And how do you see it to change, and what do you think is going to be the new normal? Whatever you have, whatever inputs you have, or whatever you see coming ahead in the world of finance.
Sure, I can only give you my personal opinion, because to be honest, Coach Direct is completely bootstrapped and completely self-funded. So we've never gone out for any financiers. But I can see what you're asking, and my personal feeling is that definitely there are going to be great deals out there, because everybody is in a cash crunch situation. So perhaps investors, if they are looking diligently, I'm sure there'll be some excellent deals that they can pick up. And so it's a lot of opportunity there, as well as for investors, as well as for people who invest in stocks and so on. So I see there's a lot of opportunity there. The second thing is that I feel it's going to get tighter. It's not going to get easy to get funding as it used to be before, because everybody are in a situation where they have to manage their existing cash flows first, and then only look outward for any extra investments. So these are roughly my two observations, if I may say.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you, Mr. Veer, and that was definitely insightful, and I'm sure the audience also got to learn firsthand from you what doubts they had regarding most of these things going online, and how things are progressing at the back end of your business, and how what are your ideas about the shifting domains. So it was really good interacting with you, and I think I will go ahead with Priyanjit now, and thank you for answering my questions. So hi, Priyanjit, are you there?
Hey, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, hi.
How you doing?
Thank you, Veer. I think you gave some amazing insights. Finance has never been my domain, so huge respect to you. Yeah.
No worries. I have other very specific questions.
Yeah.
For you.
Shubhankit, can you give me the access if I can share my screen? Because I think it will be useful if I, explain while sharing my screen.
Okay, yes,
if you could just make me the host.
Yeah. Yes.
Share.
Yeah. So yeah, you can start. Yeah. Start, Shubhankit. You want me to give me my intro?
I mean, if you have anything to add, no
Okay.
worries. You can
Sure.
go ahead with that.
Sure. So I believe the audience would be consisting of, like, both startup enthusiasts and not. So let me just tell you what I am. So I am an MBA pass out 2019. I'm very, very junior in this particular aspect, but yeah, I'm having some experience of, startups. And also I have two companies. One is Code Vector Labs. So what we do at Code Vector Labs is we help other companies implement AI in their workflow. So primarily we have worked across multiple domains. So I think Veer was talking about the sports industry. So we have multiple clients in the sports industry. We have clients in the surveillance industry. So multiple industries. So both related to video analytics, text analytics, any domain you say, we have mostly worked in it. My organization is about 1 year old at this moment. I started right after I finished my college. Did not take a placement. Wanted to follow what I thought was something very, very crucial happening that time to the world, which was AI. And what I saw was, that most people wanted to implement AI, but did not have a team which they can pay to build it. So we decided that how can
Right.
we make a business model in which we can provide affordable AI. So right now we are having clients across US and India, multiple clients, and our rates, the affordability and the quality that we provide is uh, is unmatched in India at this moment. So you can say that we are like a remote AI team for multiple companies. Yeah.
Great, great.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now that you have, you have done a good job at intriguing us and intriguing the audience. So I'm thinking one question they all have in mind is, how what inspired you to take this entrepreneurial journey and at such an early juncture, right after you completed your MBA, and what are your suggestions to similar enthusiasts considering the current scenario, because now this scenario is very uncertain. So maybe you can share something about your journey, what motivated you, and what are your suggestions to similar people.
So particularly, see, people usually think I started my journey in 2019, and in 1 year I have done where I am today. But I think my journey actually started in around 2013. So I finished my engineering in 2015 during that time. And during this time, I was very much enthusiastic in building some technology. I come from like a very small engineering college in Kolkata, so we did not had access to much stuff. And during that period of time, I participated in a lot of competitions and like competitions and events, which basically motivated me that I can do something. And then what happened was, though that urge was there, but somehow what happens is when we come from a middle class family, we do not have that risk taking capability in life. So I did take up a job in 2015 right after my college. And then
Ranjit, are you there?
Yeah, Priyanjit. Hello, Priyanjit. Are you? Hello, Priyanjit.
I think Priyanjit is having some issues. Let's give him a minute to maybe come back.
Okay. So can I grab the small opportunity till Priyanjit joins up? Okay, we got a question
Sure.
some schools don't have playgrounds and other required infrastructure. How can you help them, or how can you resolve this issue? This question is towards Mr. Beer.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Digvijay, for asking me that relevant question.
Okay.
However, as I was saying, Digvijay, we are currently only focusing on the metro cities. And obviously, when schools have budgets to pay and to outsource to professionals like us, so they wouldn't really waste their money unless they have the playground. So as of now, it's not so much of a challenge for us because we are only in the metros. But I completely hear you out because once we start going into tier 2, tier 3, really get a problem. But as of now, no, not really a problem.
Okay. Superb. Thank you. Yeah, Priyanjit is back.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened over there.
Yeah.
No,
So,
it's okay.
yeah, I think I was just continuing on that part, right? Like why I started. So there was this IMA guy, and usually this IMA guys are really brilliant, and they are very good in inspiring people. So this guy inspired me so much that it was in late 2018. I thought कि मुझे कुछ करना है, and that is how the journey started. For 1 year in college, I started my company when I was in the first year of college. For 1 year, did all the mistakes, and I think in the next year also, I did a lot of mistakes after I passed out. It is only in the last 6 months I think I understand, what business is about, how to do business, seeing a lot of big inspirational entrepreneurs, working with them alongside. That is when right now I'm like in my groove, understanding like all the things that is there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's very fresh that you are in this domain. So I wish you all the luck, and I guess this is going to be a very good learning opportunity for you. Also, this
Absolutely.
1 year, this 2020. All right. So now that you're working in AI, and you have your domain expertise in AI. So let's get a little deeper into AI. So my question is, you may have come across various business models, and you see human labor to be an integral part in a lot of these business models in our country, for example. So human labor is a very integral part. So have you thought of a solution with AI or otherwise, where you see that you can complement human labor, maybe reduce it, or maybe remove it and fill that gap which is created by a shortage of human labor? For example, in this scenario, we saw that suddenly the businesses were robbed of a vast amount of human labor when we had people migrating back to their places. So I hope you get my question, right?
Yeah, I get your question. So I'll answer it very quickly. So artificial intelligence is about automation. Okay, so wherever you can bring automation in work, you can bring some intelligence. That is what AI is all about. Because I'm in this domain, and most of the people ask me that will you remove human labor? I don't think we can ever remove the intelligence of human beings. So that is a big no. The word that we need to focus in artificial intelligence is augmentation. So that means that how we can benefit, how we can augment on human intelligence. So sometimes it's called as HI plus AI, human intelligence plus artificial intelligence. Now, I have worked across a lot of sectors in multiple places where human labor, we have been augmenting the work of human labor, but I'll show you one instance in our healthcare projects. So where do you come from? Do you come from a village or which place?
No, I come from a town. Yeah.
You come from a town. So, like, because you are based out of Odisha, so in Odisha, malaria is a huge problem, right? I came from Chhattisgarh. I studied from Chhattisgarh, where malaria is a huge problem. Now, especially if you look at the rural areas, there are hardly any doctors or pathologists, right? So that is the human labor part.
Yes.
Now, how can artificial intelligence actually help reduce that gap in healthcare? So I'll show you one image so that you understand what AI is capable of.
Sure.
So this is the typical way. In the left hand side, you can see a person seeing a slide with its eyes and processing the images in its brain. Okay. So we created an AI platform in which this entire thing can be automated. We call it the Logi.ai healthcare platform. So in this platform, what happens is you just need to upload the images. So let me just tell you. So what happens is somebody takes the image of this slide, it's uploaded to the server. The AI platform analyzes the images, gives the result back, okay, and creates a report immediately. And though we are not replacing human beings, but we are reducing the work of the human beings. I'll tell you how. Okay. So particularly in healthcare, what happens is, I'll give you an example. Let's say there is a pathologist, and this is a real life scenario. Because I work with the Kerala government, so this is a real life scenario of Kerala government. In the city of Trivandrum, there are, you can imagine the entire population, there is only one pathologist, the government hospital pathologist. Every day, what happens is she's expected to see at least 500 cases every day. Now imagine, even if somebody spends 1 minute checking one case, it's impossible for a human being, one person, to check 500 cases. So what happens is, if this 500 cases goes through, you know, like an AI system, the system will basically prioritize that which are the cases that might have a problem, and eventually out of the 500 cases, it will only tell that these are the top 50 cases. The rest of the cases are fine, you don't need to check, and the human just needs to check these 50 cases. While if it gets time, it can check out the rest of the 450 cases also. But this is how AI can prioritize the work of human beings.
And what is the reliability in such a model? Like, do we see a very high reliability in such a model?
I'll give you
or
an
are there
example.
margins of
Yeah. So the best way to understand this is in the current situation. Countries, like so many countries are trying to find a vaccine, right? So just imagine, with so much of funds, so much of energy, people, talent putting down, why are we not able to still find a vaccine? Because of the trials that is happening. So anything related to healthcare takes a lot of time, needs to go through clinical trials. Okay.
right?
Similarly, this AI models also needs to go through clinical trials. So clinical trials takes years. It is not something easy. It depends upon use case to use case. So as you might have seen, ICMR gave some guidelines, you know, that Bharat Infotech is trying to find a vaccine, and it was all over the WhatsApp that
Yes.
by August 15, they'll complete it. And many people actually criticize that how it is possible to do it by August 15. How can you finish trials so soon? So AI system is
Right.
also like that. The more and more trials you do, it is a very nascent industry. It's only about, I think, 5 years old. Okay, so everybody in this industry is pretty new. We are having AI models being rapidly used in few particular use cases in healthcare, but most of it is still untouched. So I think 10 years down the line, like we'll be able to answer it in the same way, that how reliable it is. And also I'll give you another analogy so that you understand. Do you use Google Maps?
Yes, yes.
Do you
I'm sure
trust,
we all do.
and let's do a survey over here. I think there are 20 odd people. I think all of you just trust Google Maps just like that, right? Even if you have to travel 500 kilometers, you will just trust Google Maps. So the
Yes.
point is, Google Maps is all AI, okay? Google Maps is all AI. But initially, when it started 10 years back, nobody would have trusted it because it could have given wrong directions. But the AI models have become so mature 10 years down the line, so accurate and so mature that we trust now. Same is with healthcare. Healthcare AI models today, people won't trust them. But I think like 10 years down the line, people will trust them. One of the success stories in India is Cure.ai, who is doing relatively well among all other companies. But I think it's like a 10 years journey at this moment, 2030. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me get let me get you on board about a topic which has intrigued me a lot, and I have a few questions about.
Okay.
So AI also has a big part to play in conversational technology now that we see it coming ahead. And how far is it from how far is this conversational technology in its implementation in vernacular languages? And because you see in a country like India, you have so many vernacular languages, and most of our, I mean, a great chunk of our population uses vernacular languages. So how far is it from, solving the problems of a normal human being who is maybe, in the suburbs or in some rural place and things like that?
So vernacular conversational AI is a reality now. It is no more a myth. So if you are following the news, Flipkart has done it. They did a research for almost last 1 year now. Google did it. Google has one of the best conversational AIs that is there, and Flipkart has also done it. So the with the current sentiments that is there, I think you are absolutely correct. Vernacular is the way to go, and but I'll tell you a practical challenge. I'll like for example, you would speak Odia, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So Google, I don't know if anybody is related to Google by any way or not, but Google is still not able to detect Telugu and Malayalam properly. So we are actually working on one AI-based conversational app at this moment, which we will launch next week only. Okay, so we couldn't get very good like translations in Telugu and Malayalam from Google. So India is actually not one country. India is not one
Yes.
country. I think India is an amalgamation of at least 20 countries, at least, if not more. So whoever, nobody can crack it. Like it's barely impossible. Like the kind of dialect, the kind of language, the tone, it changes like what? Every 30, 40 kilometers it changes. So Google is one of the front runners in doing it. Flipkart has done it. Flipkart has launched its own thing last month for conversational AI. I think conversational AI is a reality. You have seen people like Alexa and Google Home, all of them do it. Uh, Not much of Indian companies, but I think with Flipkart starting it, there are a few Indian companies who have done it, but maybe not reached that scale of success like an Alexa or a Google Home have reached. But it's a reality now. It's a reality. There is enough research
We have,
done to make it a reality.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We have a question from Digvijay in the chat. You can also view
I'm
it.
not able to
He
see the chat,
asks
so
about
can
the
you?
operational aspect.
I
Okay,
cannot
do
see
you
the
want me to
chat,
read it
so
out for you?
yeah. Tell me the question.
Okay, no problem. I'll read it out for
Yeah.
you. Yeah. So Digvijay asks that a lot of companies are spending huge amounts to integrate AI and ML in their IT infrastructure, but they are unable to utilize it effectively and efficiently. And some are even shutting down their businesses. So what is your take on this?
The solution is contact Code Vector Labs for such a thing. You do not need to spend a lot. I completely agree to this fact. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to mute. I don't know who that is. Okay, thank you.
Just a moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is the
Let's go ahead.
exact thing that companies spend huge amount of money to integrate AI into their solutions, and the reason for that is, see, AI is like pretty costly. It's very costly, right? It's so AI engineers, ML engineers, they don't come for free. But what they don't realize is actually you need very good solutioning. I'll give you a very simple example, okay? That how companies spend a lot of money and still do not get a solution. So we had a client, I can't name it, but I'm just telling the broad use case. Okay, we had a client who wanted to reduce the attrition rate of blue collar workers. I hope what blue collar workers mean. Blue collar workers are not like typically the laborers and people like जो 10-15 हजार में काम करते हैं, ठीक है? So what they were seeing was, and this is a real example, what they were seeing was कि लोग training ले लेते, these people used to take training and then they used to leave, and the attrition rate was 50%. Now they first went
That's
to
huge.
AI, yeah, that's huge. They first went to AI company one who told them that do video analytics try to find their behavioral analysis
Mm-hmm.
while they are doing their interview, and from there
Okay.
predict whether that person will join or not. Now, this is our domain. Okay. Behavioral video analytics is something that we specialize in, that for what people come to us for. When this person came to me, okay, I told him this is not the solution. This is a very bad solution. You cannot judge on the basis of behavioral analytics whether somebody will join or not. The maximum you can understand through video analytics is somebody's confidence level, and whether he's smart or not, or whether he's anxious or not during the interview. What I suggested him was a very, very different solution, which I cannot tell at this moment, but which is at least like 90% cheaper of the solution which other company told them. So the problem is actually not the ML engineers. The problem is good business analysts who do not understand what the AI solution should be. Okay. And people get attracted. Most of the companies, we are AI partners to some companies who are valued at more than $20 million. Can you imagine? So a company which is $20 million in valuation has kept us as their AI partner because they don't want to spend themselves. It is very easy to get an engineer. It is not easy to get a person who understands what the solutioning would be.
I understand.
Yeah.
Really, and because we are having a lot of questions, so I'll just
automobile dealership MSK group அப்படின்னு very popular in
I
ஈரோடு
cannot.
திருப்பூர் அந்த ரீஜன்ல. ஸோ MSK ஆட்டோ நிறைய different dealerships அங்க வச்சிருக்காங்க.
Digvijan, can you mute the some guest?
Transport இருக்கு. And finally
Digvijan?
I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'll just take up a couple of other questions. We have around the audience is asking a lot of questions, and so I'll just take some of them
till 8:30, right?
Yeah. So let's see how many questions we can accommodate.
Yeah.
So Abhishek is asking, how can AI be applied in areas of medical education, because medical education still tends to rely a lot, heavily on a lot of books and real world demonstrations. So this is Abhishek Shetty asking you.
I'll give a very pertinent answer, to this, because I understand this space very well. Initially, when we thought, and this is a very untapped area, which is healthcare education AI. And I'll explain how it can be applied. So if you see my presentation only over here, okay, this is basically an image of a cell, and this is what the AI predicts that particular cell is. Okay. Now, these are basically taught to pathologists and doctors, that this is how the cell looks, and this is what it is, depending upon the features. So depending upon the features, you have to detect. But now imagine that if you already have an AI model, you don't need actually a trainer to teach you this. You have this application in your home, and you yourself can actually do the predictions, and the AI can tell you whether you have done the right prediction or not. So the AI is trained on a lot of things. You yourself can actually do a lot of things and find out whether it is right or not. To be very pertinent, if there is any MBA person over here, I don't know if there is any MBA guy or not over here. In MBA, we have Harvard simulation labs. What Harvard has done is, anybody understands simulation labs over here? I don't know. Okay. But what simulation labs basically means is that they create an artificial case study, that artificial business case study, where the candidate actually needs to do certain selections or certain decisions. जैसे मैंने आपको ये केस स्टडी बताया, राइट, कि ये प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है. Now ये particular problem का there could be 4 different solutions, right? You don't know which is the best solution. Similarly, for example, when a patient comes to a doctor, the patient basically has 2 different things. One is basically the symptoms, and the other is basically the case history, patient history, sorry. Now, depending upon this history and symptoms, they can actually do different diagnoses, and this diagnosis will differ from doctor to doctor. Now, imagine if you have a simulation where you can actually do these trials and the AI can tell you how accurate you are to the real solution. This is a $1 billion idea if done.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
We actually
Yeah.
wanted to do this, but the problem in
I'll club
healthcare is,
a question that,
yeah, let me just share you the problem also that is there. That is the collaboration with hospitals. So AI project requires a collaboration. It is just, I am not a doctor. I don't understand healthcare. I just know parts, bits and parts to it. But a lot of collaborations is required, which does not generally happen. That is why such projects do not actually like eventually come up.
yeah, maybe, I mean, AI also has a long way to go in terms of collaboration with various domains. Now, I'll club a question that Bindu has, and I'll club it with another question that I had. So, maybe you can answer both the questions together. So Bindu is basically asking questions about how raised funds and all. But I'm asking you a question that, you can maybe tell us in case you have helped some startup or other startups, how have you helped them advance and have you helped them reach a stage of funding? So maybe you can, say something about that.
So for raising funds, I was lucky right after I passed my MBA. The next month we got a funding from IIIT Hyderabad, CIE. So IIIT Hyderabad is the center for the best startups, AI startups in India. So they have been handholding me particularly for last 1 year. I'm very much obliged and very much thankful to them for helping me. So typically the way to get startups is there are a lot of acceleration funds which are basically like pre-seed funds, typically ranging from between 10 to 30 lakhs. So this is something that anybody can actually get with a prototype and a good team. So if somebody has a good prototype and a good credible team, not a good team, a good credible team, because credibility is something I have seen is like a big issue. So with this kind of a prototype and credible team, you can get anything between 10 to 30 lakhs. Beyond this, the typical rounds are like when we speak with investors, it's anywhere between 2 to 3.5 CR that has been, I haven't been offered more than this ever in my life. So I don't know anything beyond it, but it's typically in this range that happens. Coming to your part, have I helped startups? So I started off as a student. Okay, so I did not have any access. Everything is self-learned. So what I did to learn was last year I traveled for 6 months all over India after I passed out my college. So I have a lot of connects, and that is how I understood. So I understood that, for somebody who starts from the college, he's very much passionate, but the problem is he does not have the network and the guidance. So I haven't helped any startup earn funds. I think I haven't done that, but I have helped at least 100 startups get network and guidance. I run a group known as, I think this is, you can see my screen also. This is, where is it? So I started a group known as 100 Young Minds last year. This is the group. I'm showing the description of this group also, so that if anybody is interested. So a lot of students were actually reaching out to me that, how I can help them, and they were asking for mentorship and everything. So I started a group, which is basically a knowledge sharing portal for youngsters having ideas. The aim is to help young people, especially students who have dreams to do something big, but not exactly sure how to go about. So my idea was to at least help 100 other people like me. Now the group has crossed beyond 150 at this moment. And it's a very, very highly elite group. I do not add anybody. It contains guys from, all over world, not just India. And it's totally free. I do not charge a single penny. I do not want to ever charge a single penny for helping people, because I have my own principles towards that. So yeah, that is what I have done over the last 1 year in terms of helping startups.
Great. Great. You're doing amazing, and we all can see, that you have a long way to go, but I think you are oriented in a very good direction. So kudos to that. And I think I have come up to my last question now, PNG, and let's explore AI on a lighter side. A lot of these applications are with AI are going to be integrated onto mobile applications, and games are a big part of mobile applications. They have a lot of users, and we see AI has entered into games, and it has entered into a lot of places. But I mean, what is the innovation in this field that you can foresee?
Yeah. So basically, the biggest application is actually in this strategy. So what this basically means is, let me just tell you, which game do you play? Do you play any games like related to,
Yes, yes.
like PUBG? Do you play
Yeah,
PUBG?
yeah, I do. I
Okay.
do.
So
Sometimes,
basically,
yes.
what happens in a game like PUBG is, depending upon your action, a certain situation is created. Now, this situation earlier, 10 years back, was hard coded. That means
Yeah,
that
right.
the situation was fixed, it cannot be changed. But now, what happens is, this situation actually is AI based. So, depending upon your moves, this situation can change. So let's say
Of
that you are
course.
playing very well. Let's say that you are playing very well. They will introduce a difficulty level to you so that your adrenaline rush increases. But if you are not playing very well, they'll keep it easy for you. This is one application. I'm not an expert in game AI, to be very frank. Let me clear that. My understanding of game AI is very limited. This is one thing I know about that is used for strategizing. The second is
Hmm.
actually deep fakes and creating avatars or characters. So there is a lot of. Do you play FIFA?
No, but yeah,
But
I've
you
seen a lot
have
of
might have
friends.
seen, right? So in FIFA, there are a lot of players that that have their own avatar, like Messi, Ronaldo, and everything. So in order to create those
Yes, yes.
characters, it takes like years. It takes a big team. With AI, that is possible to create it within just minutes. So I think these are the two areas where like creating avatars and strategy are two areas. There are multiple other areas in which AI games particularly would probably be utilizing, but my knowledge in this particular domain is limited.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Priyanjit. You were very kind to, take so many questions, and I also want to thank Veer. Veer, can we have you on this screen? Veer, are you there?
Hey, Beer. No, Beer is there, I think.
Uh, yeah, Veer is there, but yeah, he's
He,
there. He's there. Yeah.
Yeah, 1 second, guys. Sorry.
yeah.
No, no worries. No worries.
Okay. I have
So
some small
I
questions. Can I?
Sure.
Hey, hi.
yeah,
Okay.
finish because
This
we are running out of time. So
Yeah, this is Priyadarshi. Yeah, there are one question that you would like to ask to Priyanjit as well as to Beer. What you guys would suggest? I just want your one minute answer. What you guys would suggest to startups in this pandemic scenarios? Because this scenario is very bad. You all guys knew it. So I would start with Priyanjit, then I will come down to Beer. Take only 1 minute. What you would suggest?
First thing is, for us, actually, our business increased at least twice or thrice after the pandemic because there is a huge demand for AI that people want at this moment. What I feel at this moment, I'll be very frank and honest with you. I'm not very experienced. Everything is learned in the last 1 or 2 years. I have seen a change in me in the last 3 months, and that is magical. I couldn't. So when I was, I was in a batch of 210 people, and I am guys, they get a lot of salary. So it was like I had to put a lot of stone on my heart and not pick up a campus placement. And I did not knew like what I would do in the next 6 months. In the next 6 months, I was all over traveling over India. Nothing was happening. Veer might be able to help me. I was into a lot of depression in Jan and Feb. So his startup might be able to help me because everything was falling apart. But I saw a change happen in the last 2 months when suddenly I was able to connect all the dots and I was able to understand what business is, whatever was taught in my marketing class, I was able to understand it. So the point I'm trying to make is a lot of guys who might not be having a job, this is the best time to do a startup. Even if you have a job, you can try something on your own for 6 months. Give it a try, give it completely, your 100%. If it works, it's very good. You can leave your job. If it doesn't work, you would have got such a nice experience. I think that is unmatched. So in my particular case, I would have learned something that I would have learned in 3-4 years. Even if I fail tomorrow, it's absolutely fine. I think I had a lot of learning in the last 1 year. So start up to start learning.
Okay. Yeah, Veer.
Well,
I wish I had a magic moment like Priyanjit. Well done, man. I really appreciate that. But I really resonate the point about do give it a best try, because I do feel it's not at all a bad time to start up, because anyway your revenues are going to come after a few months down the line. It's not going to come anyway easily. It could even be a couple of years down the line. So by that time, hopefully the market will be all up and will be favorable to you. So it's definitely a good time to think starting up and to do the hard work now. Main thing is to keep yourself motivated. That's all that makes a difference. And I think you did a wonderful job, Priyanjit. Well done.
Perfect. Okay. Before handing over to Subhankit, I'm Priyadarshi, co-founder of my startup Yatra. We are here to help the startups, and basically we are catering to tier 2 cities. The startups who are in tier 2 cities, we are trying to help them out. Apart from once they are formulated with their ideas, after it we are there. And we just handhold them to go to an international market or international market, getting them funding, preparing a business plan. And I'm really thankful to Veer for coming and jumping and joining us in helping the startups at this juncture of time. Thank you, Veer. So Veer will be mentoring to some startups at this pandemic time, because we do really need someone who can help or handle the startups at this juncture. Because mental imbalance, most of the time when we're talking with many of the startups, they're saying, sir, we have everything, but we don't know how to do. Everything is changing. Slowly they are changing, and they are not able to understand, or they are not able to understand what to do, how to do the business process reengineering, how to handle their mindset, how to handle the change management. So it's really, really a trouble scenario. And yes, Priyanjit, I do respect you like anything. I had seen you for last 1.5 years or 2 years, I think.
You have seen me, right.
And every time we are connecting with Priyanjit, and yes, you are really amazing, The day when we're discussing, at the time you were saying, okay, I was just learning, you were learning AI, and at the time we are into AI. Now when seeing you, I really appreciate. I really say, okay, देखो भाई, एक साल में बंदा कहाँ से कहाँ पहुँच गया. I used to cite your example, Sometimes it gives me really pride. Okay, there is a guy who is from A to end. Really, he's really struggling and doing it up. So this is what I would like to say. Over to you, Subhankit.
Yeah. So thank you, Veer, and thank you, Priyanjit. I have been getting real-time inputs from our audience, and they had a lovely experience talking to you. A lot of them have been thanking you in our chats as well. And like Bindu says, thank you, Veer and Priyanjit, for your honest and insightful narratives. So everyone has been very happy. I'm sure this session has been a learning experience for a lot of people, a lot of students, and a lot of startups. And this could have not been possible without my startup Yatra's help and Priyadarshie's help. So I also want to thank Priyadarshie for bringing all of us together under one forum. And let's have more of these sessions, and let's exchange information and ideas, and let's help each other out. So I'm really thankful to both of you, and let's hope that we can take these things ahead, take good things from this, and maybe build on it later on. So thank you, Veer, and thank you, Priyanjit. And thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you everyone.